Welcome to the Very Liberal podcast with me, Lembit, Opik.
And me, Mark Oaten.
And boy, we have a lot to discuss today, starting with Rishi Sunak's D-Day debacle and Nigel Farage's foray into the general election.
Wow, D-Day Debacle. I couldn't
I
say
practiced that a lot.
Yeah, clearly.
Third time lucky.
Mine is simpler. The Lib Dem launch, I want to talk about the debates, and also why this election campaign is a lot shorter than you actually think.
And if we've got time, maybe a blunder each as well from the past.
Yeah, I mean,
we have to do it.
Plenty of blunders.
Oh yeah, actually,
let's face
we've
it.
done another 2 hours on that. Let's start though with another blunder, which you may have noticed not so long ago. Rishi Sunak went to the D-Day commemoration in Normandy to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the largest invasion from the sea in the history of modern battles and so forth. And he made a little bit of a mistake there. It all looked great, beautiful weather, fantastic shots. And then he went away. He left.
I mean, I have some sympathy. I mean, I think, well, at one level, a huge mistake, but I can understand how these things happen. You imagine there you are with your campaign team. You're going through the grid. You've got so many appointments to fit in. When are we going to fit in this TV interview? Somebody looks down at the grid and says, well, actually, if you stay till then, we'll leave Cameron behind to do the other stuff, and you can nip back and do the interview. It's a process mistake, but a huge error of judgment that he didn't realize the wider implications.
From any angle, this was a complete cock-up. He turned D-Day into Dunkirk. He came back before everybody else. And then he made it worse, Mark. He said, well, it was always planned to be this way. But how can anyone think that coming and doing an interview with a commercial station in Britain is more important than standing there with the President of the United States, the head of Germany, the President of France? Come on.
You've seen some of the things on X where they've got him lined up with all of the other world leaders, and he's there with his suitcase looking at his watch. I mean, it is a huge error. But we said, didn't we, that this election would come alive when there was a cock-up? And that's been our first cock-up. I think for me now, what we're seeing, whether or not Starmer or Rayner will commit something just as bad. But at the moment, it's been a really bad week for the Tories.
Yeah, and it won't go away. That's the thing. It carried over the normal reset, which is a Sunday, for the next news round. But it's carrying on. And that's because no one can really understand how he could have been so apparently disrespectful as the Conservative. Let's remember that, the Conservative leader of a great nation, which was commemorating and celebrating essentially a military success. Yes. He says, sorry, guys, got to go. Leave my old mucker behind.
I mean, for me, it wasn't a matter of disrespect. It was just a pure matter of not understanding the logic, not understanding the wider implications. An error of judgment, basically. I don't think he went out deliberately to be disrespectful, but it shows that he just doesn't get it.
Yes, but the thing is, when he apologised and said, oh, I hope people have it in their heart to forgive me, I can forgive him, but I can't respect him. If he hasn't got the nous to do that, how can he be the Prime Minister? Yeah. That's what I think.
And of course, all of the others have had a go at him, not least of which, of course, the big beast who's entered the campaign recently, and that's Farage. This was a great hit for him because he wants to be seen as that patriotic guy standing up for our war veterans. And he had a right old go at Rishi.
And quite rightly so. I always was surprised when Farage wasn't standing in a general election where he has his best chance of fulfilling one of his ambitions, which is to be a member of Parliament. Now he's got his chance. And he just laid in. Already he's got the immigration vote, I'd say, because he's got more credibility than anyone else. He's got the Brexit credibility, and there's something about British Bulldog in that. So, of course, he let rip much more credibly, I think, than Keir Starmer.
I mean, I think what's fascinating, and I'm involved in a couple of campaigns, and I've actually been knocking on the doorstep, something you need to do to really get into tune with what's going on.
I remember those days, Mark.
Yeah. But it's really, when you actually chat to real human beings on the doorstep, I'm seeing this election campaign as in two phases. Pre-Farage and post-Farage. Without a shadow of a doubt, his entering the campaign has shifted things on the doorstep. People were not saying before, we're going to vote reform. What they're now saying when you chat to them is, I'm going to vote for Farage. And that is what he does. He brings credibility. He brings a name which people can easily recognize. And, you know, whether you like what he says or not, he has brought the campaign to life.
I was actually knocking on doors as well, would you believe?
Yeah, but who for?
I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you. I was doing a favour for a friend.
Doing pulls on the door. They can do it online now.
Avon calling.
Yeah.
It wasn't any of that. It was actually a political bit of door knocking, and I had the same experience. Farage has turbocharged some people who were just so despondent they would I feel initially had said, I'm a Conservative, but I'm going to stay at home this time. Now they've got somewhere to go. And Farage is very good at this because you get exactly what it says on the tin.
But do you think we are going to get what they're talking about as the crossover, the point at which Reform poll more than the Conservatives? Now, the impact of Farage starting took them up to around 15. The lowest I think the Conservatives have been is 20. That's a 5-point gap. It's not inconceivable that actually in the next couple of weeks that crossover could happen, and then all hell lets loose in the Conservative Party.
So all Rishi Sunak has to do is not show up for a few more photo opportunities, and then his bus knocks over some old granny and he shouts out the door, "Watch where you're going, love," and that might do it. And it wouldn't be inconceivable. Next day, he'd apologise for the error of judgment.
Absolutely. Talking of photo opportunities, I mean, we were criticising in the previous pod Ed Davey because he'd been falling in the water in lakes, he'd been down a chute, he'd been cycling with his legs wide open, if that's the right way. Yeah, all right.
Too much
horrible image.
information.
Horrible image. But you know, I've changed my mind. I think actually the gimmicks have worked. They put him onto the agenda. And at a time when Starmer and Sunak are just so dull and boring, what it did was put Ed in as a human-looking politician. It got him coverage. And of course, this week they've been the first party to launch the official manifesto.
Yeah, we'll talk about the manifesto in a moment. The problem with all of those stunts is it's borrowed interest. You don't learn anything about the Lib Dems. You just see a gormless kind of Ed Davey, no offence said, just doing these
I don't
stunts.
say no offence, you've just called him gormless.
But he's got to be thick-skinned enough to accept positive feedback, say, as a critical
That's
friend.
positive friend.
Well, I would say so. And that's difficult thing. We've got boring Rishi Sunak. We've got totally unconvincing Keir Starmer, and then we got Charlie Coriolis in charge of the Liberal Democrats.
But that's the point, isn't it? Against those two grey politicians, what he's turning around to do is to say, look, you can be a human being, you can have some fun, and you can also have serious political views. And I thought the manifesto was excellent. They absolutely hit the nail on the head by talking about the NHS, investing 8 billion, more doctors, guaranteeing some times for people who are waiting for cancer, guaranteeing being able to see a dentist. These are what people are really concerned about at the moment, and they've been absolutely right to focus on those issues.
I'll give you this. In the serious interviews when he's got his tie on and everything else, he has actually come across pretty well. I'm impressed with that.
So this isn't serious when we haven't got our ties on. I mean, you can't... Look
at your shirt. Come on. Look at it. It's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
I think this is quite classy.
It's like, I disagree.
Okay. But moving on.
Sorry. Neither of us are leading a party. But what I would say about Ed is that if anybody saw that political broadcast he did where he was talking,
that was touching.
It was amazing. He was talking about his family life. And do you know what? He was brave enough to be allowed to cry on camera. And I think that is a good thing. I think it shows a human side to politicians. And it means that when he talks about social care and making it free at the point of delivery, people can believe it because he's experienced it.
Yeah, I think that was sincere, unlike the crocodile tears we've seen at the post office inquiry. But he isn't blameless, but we'll talk about that some other day. I think that's the reason I've got a problem with the stunts. The Ed Davey that you see in the serious stuff is much more persuasive than I expected him to be able to be. And also, you've listed some fairly attractive policies. They're not going to set the world alight, but they are the kind of things ordinary people maybe care about. You be the judge of that. Let us know, by the way, on our website, which is here. You'll get the number here.
No stunt, no discussion. That's the point. He needs the stunt to get the airwaves to get. If Ed is going to go on, just talk about the NHS, no one's going to listen. But if they actually see him doing something a bit fun and then he talks about the NHS, you can engage.
Wrong.
We will see.
The representation of the People's Act guarantees him the coverage, so we can either see him making stupid faces at Thorpe Park, or actually talking about the policy.
No, but you missed the point. The stunts were all done in the first week when that representation of the People Act hadn't kicked in.
Yesterday.
No, he
did the Thorpe Park yesterday.
The first week, there was no requirement from the media to give equal coverage. That only kicked in when the official election campaign started. So those stunts were cleverly positioned when they didn't have to cover the Lib Dems. Now you're right, they have to cover them.
I mean, yesterday he was making a pantomime of it.
Well, because I think it worked really well for the first
week. Oh, no, it didn't.
Oh, come on. What's that behind you? Now,
taxi?
Yeah. I've said it before, Uber. And we're still waiting, Uber, for you to sponsor us.
Come on.
Only so many times I can say it. Now, look, all of these stunts, everything going on, the debate, what is interesting for me is that these things, people might say, well, look, it's a long campaign, people will forget by polling day. Actually, polling day is coming a lot quicker than you think.
Well, as Rishi Sunak brought the date forward again.
You should know this, you are falling into the trap are forgetting about the increasing number of voters who vote by post.
Postal vote.
Postal
Of course,
votes.
you're right. Yes.
And these are going to be
Yeah, yeah.
hitting the doormats very soon indeed.
What percentage?
It's around a quarter of people on the electoral roll. And if you think that the turnout is maybe going to be around 75, maximum 80%, then actually those 25% who get postal votes, self-evidently a little bit more engaged in politics, more likely to vote. So this is a huge challenge for all of the parties, because they have, in a way, two phases. They've got to get a lot of messages out before the postal votes go, and those postal votes could go out up to 2 weeks before polling day. So you have this campaign phase where down on the ground in the constituencies, coming up very soon will be a massive targeting of people who vote by post to get them an extra leaflet, get an extra door knock before they actually vote. And if it means that, I don't know, Keir Starmer says something crazy and stupid a week before polling day, doesn't count.
Well, it does, but not quite as much.
Not for a lot of people who are going to vote in this election.
Yeah,
it's a huge impact.
I don't like the postal vote system. You can steal the election. You can steal the election.
You were Northern Ireland spokesman, weren't you? Is that where you've got that from?
Vote early, vote often.
Yeah. That's the place.
And it's not just that. I mean, Trump, I think, is justified in saying in America that things may have been different without the postal vote, but notwithstanding that, we can't change that. You are right. You lose 2 weeks in a sense.
It is.
Because some of the most motivated people will have voted 2 weeks earlier.
I can remember going around into the residential care homes and seeing all of the...
Seeing one person.
seeing matron who was holding literally 20 postal votes.
200.
Or 20 of these votes, and going up to people and saying, where do you want me to put your cross? And it was like...
Well, while you were there, matron was asking that question there. Oh, matron.
Listen, for a tin of baked beans for the tombola, I was always looked after really, really
Treating.
What are your crazy elections? I mean, what was it like for you when you... Because this is the point when you are sometime midway through the campaign that fatigue can really kick in. You're exhausted, but you know you've still got a long time to go.
I actually enjoyed all but one of the elections.
The one you lost.
Yeah, but I lost it partly because I didn't enjoy it. My mindset was wrong. Let me be honest about it. I thought my way out of victory. If just 700 people had voted the other way, then I'd have won. And I just think that my heart wasn't in it. The other ones I really enjoyed, going around, knocking on doors, people saying, oh yeah, really good work. Because it's quite flattering when people say that. The last one, they just weren't looking at me in the same way. And I think it's crushingly difficult, not if you're popular, but you're just not going to get the vote, but if you're not winning because it's you. And I think that's what happened to me the last time.
I think for any candidate, it's that grueling, constant, up early in the morning, maybe 3 canvas sessions during the day, hundreds of letters coming in, dealing with media requests, trying to make sure that your campaign team is focused. Have we got enough volunteers? Can we get all of the leaflets out? There are so many different things to think about in such a short period of time. And then you get the crazy, quirky things which happen. I mean,
like what?
Well, presumably you've had naked voters, haven't you?
I had a man in his underpants who's clearly...
Why did you say it like that?
Because of the next thing I'm going to say.
Underpants?
Because I don't want to say it explicitly.
But why did you go low voice when you mentioned...
Because he was very aroused by...
By seeing you?
I don't know exactly, but it was obvious. I was uncomfortable.
Did you have him down as a definite?
I had him down as a fan. So to speak.
I think my work... Yeah, we'll gloss over that.
Maybe.
My worst experience was I was doing one of these national debates as the shadow Home Secretary, and I was going through security at Newcastle Airport, and they knew who I was, and I was meant to be like all about security, and they found a penknife on me, which was like literally so embarrassing. And the bizarre reason, I don't quite know why, but I was at Charles Kennedy's stag party, and we all were given by the hotel penknives as gifts. And I was carrying
this... all had a few.
Well, yeah, and
that's a recipe. That's
Charles,
a recipe.
Charles loved having a few, as we know. So yeah, that was rather awkward being pulled over by security.
Did you have to hand it in?
No, they said, oh, if it's Charles Kennedy's penknife, that's fine. It was all rather sort of bizarre.
From now on, millions of people all over Britain will be doing the same thing. Well, we'd like to know what you think about what we've been saying as well. Just last thing before we go. What would it take, do you think, for the Conservatives to win this general election? Is there any way back for them?
I mean, I think the only thing that can happen is if something seriously was discovered or revealed about Keir Starmer, which completely ruined his reputation. This is for the Labour Party to lose, and I can't see that they're in that position. You do, however, have to go back to 1992 when it looked like Labour were going to win, and their then leader, Neil Kinnock, did a rally in Sheffield and he shouted out, "You're all right, you're all right," and it just felt it was over the top.
It just grated. I'll never forget
grated.
it.
And I think they lost the election because of that. But I don't see Starmer being that kind of individual. He's the least likely person to shout, "You're all right." It's not going to happen. They're going to stay safe, I think.
Of course, that means Rishi Sunak's one gambit would be to say to Starmer, "Listen, I'll just hire out a huge big stadium in Sheffield."
You and me together, Starmer, Rishi in Sheffield.
No, Rishi probably will leave before the rally.
Talking of leaving, I think we should go.
Yeah, thanks so much for watching. Once again, this is where you can leave your comments and see our back copies as well of our podcast. I'm Lembit.
And I'm Mark Oaten.
And this was the Very Liberal Podcast. See you next time.